Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to be reviewing my newer set of Airfix World War II British Infantry. This is part of their Vintage Classics collection. They're 132 scale, and this is the actual size of them. Their paint job, we're going to also paint these, but I wanted to kind of show you guys what's on the box. These are produced in, the illustration is from 1980, original production date is 1978, and the package design is from 2021. So the newer boxes by Airfix for their troops are, in my opinion, they're pretty lackluster. I mean, they've got the flatter Airfix logo, which I do like. I think that's nice. But this is, like, without the outline, it's pretty hard to read. I don't know what the design choice was here. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I'm sure I've mentioned it in other videos in the past, but I really love package design. And the package doesn't really do anything for me with these guys. The back is very lackluster as well. Because they give you less figures overall, the package is smaller compared to the older boxes, like the Target boxes, for example, that were bigger and contained upwards of 30 figures. This one contains 14 with various poses. We're going to look at them in a second. There's also some reference numbers here for painting guys if you use Humbrol paints. I don't use Humbrol paints. I use all Vallejo and some Citadel and a little bit of Army Painter. But this is like basically a reference if you're going to paint with that set of Humbrol paints that I guess Airfix makes. I'm really not sure. Let's look at the figures here. I actually do have one already painted. That's going to be my base. I painted this guy already. It's a little bit more detail, some highlights and lowlights, and a bit more emphasis on the face, but I did not paint the eyes because they're sort of cloaked in shadow here by the helmet anyway. They come in a plastic bag that I've removed from a previous opening, but they just sort of jiggle in there, and because they're a harder plastic, they're more brittle. So let's take a look at the figures. There's one that always gets stuck at the bottom, like a mortar guy. Overall, I really love the simplicity of the British uniforms. They have these nice wide brim hats. They don't have a lot of extra pouches or gear to carry. They've got their canteens. This guy has a side satchel. Sometimes what you'll see with some molds is when a figure is kneeling down, the foot blends right into the thigh. The plastic will just meld together. But this has good clear separation, delineation of the individual pieces, which will make for a better painting experience. Next, we've got the standing figure, the standing firing pose figure with the Lee Enfield rifle. This guy has a knife and a sheath for it on the side of his pants right here. Not all of them have that. He's got his canteen, his front ammo pouches. I'm assuming these have ammo in them, right? Good, clean production mold. Still some mold lines going down the sides and across the face, which will need to be cleaned up. But for the most part, because there's no weird turns or anything too dramatic, clean up on this guy should be really easy. There's this guy with the running pose. Again, not a lot of detail on him either. His uniform is very simple. His face is, missing half of it if you really look under there. So when we paint these, we have to figure out, like, this is definitely going to be like the dominant side. And that's important to consider when I'm painting, like how much effort I'm going to put into trying to clean this side up. It's one of the goofy quirks about painting these Airfix. There's a number of quirks, but that's definitely one of them. Solve for the issue of the unsculpted eyebrow there. But again, carrying a Lee Enfield, a little bit of conjoining plastic here where the hand meets the abdomen. Not a big deal. It's easy to account for that. Just paint it the uniform, same uniform color. The soldier he's in repose, I guess you'd say. He's pulling back on a hand grenade. He's going to throw it, carrying the Lee Enfield again. He also has the band. He also has the bayonet. I believe this is a bayonet. He's pretty cool. I like his pose. He's got a great silhouette. We've got this guy with the Bren light. I really like that his helmet is tipped down a little bit, like he's really focused in to fire. I think that's pretty nice. He does not have a bayonet. Why would he? Doesn't have a rifle to attach it to. His face isn't too bad. They all seem to have this same issue, though, where half of the eyebrow is not sculpted underneath the helmet. In comparison, this one who is looking up, looks like his helmet is actually tilted over the eyebrow, so that makes a bit more sense. They're all very similar faces, too. They all have similar sculpts. So the last figure is the guy holding the Thompson. He's in this sort of awkwardly bent over. Firing from the hip is certainly a choice. But the Thompson is well sculpted. Again, it's the only one that isn't broken of the three. He has a little bit of a production mold mark here. Nothing too egregious, though. And the seam lines are pretty standard. They look similar to the rest. So yeah, the last thing to do is just sort of show you this officer again, who I'm going to use as my base of reference for how I'm going to paint them. He was painted with a black undercoat and shot over top of the zenithal highlight using English uniform. These are both Vallejo spray can paints. And then I used a bit of khaki on the straps, some dark gray for the binoculars, the boots, and the pistol. And then I used, I believe this was cavalry brown for the pistol holster and the strap of his hat. But I'll have to go back and reference my previous video that I posted as a short to really know for sure. I recently was suggested to get Flashmaster blades by a few people on my channel, so thank you for that. I went over to flashmasterhobby.com and I just bought a pack of them. It was $10 for 10. So that they're not a sponsor in any way, but I do like them for the most part. I feel like they're not quite as durable as I would like. I've been through a couple of them already, scraping up some previous figures, and it might have just been like me being aggressive to try to really test their durability, but they're a little different than, to typical razor blade. They still fit into the razor blade holders that I have, but the blade is actually on the opposite side of the piece of metal. So in a traditional blade, it would be over here, but these are much thinner than those. I'll just give you an example. So this is your more traditional X-Acto blade, and you can see that the Flashmasters are smaller and the blade is on the opposite side. So these are better for scraping, and these are good for straight edge plastics, but it is difficult to get around some of the tight corners of an Airfix model, for example, with that blade because it's not rigid. These have a lot of bend and flexibility in them. So let me show you here as I go through. They're still very sharp and still like mostly durable, but because of the nature of how thin they are, you do have to apply a bit more pressure in some regards. So one of the things that I noticed before is that with a more traditional X-Acto knife blade, the plastic doesn't like flick off. With this, because I'm applying pressure and there is bend to the blade, it tends to flick the plastic shavings, the flash shavings, as I'm peeling them off, and I've actually had them hit me in the face and come close to my eye. So that's not a problem I ever had with a more traditional X-Acto knife, because they don't quite act like they're flicking them at you. They just sort of shave off and fall away. Trimming away from you, see, this is a good example of how it just shoots off. You're in a better position, but if you're trimming towards yourself and you start to pull, then you're getting little pieces of plastic flung at you. It's really silly. And the last thing I did before I took these out to prime was to sand them down with a bit of 400 grit sandpaper. Just got them nice and smooth and tried to blend the seams a bit. So one of the things I like to do is I like to use this Lazy Susan that I got from, it was Target. I got it on sale. I think it was $5. I got a bunch of them. I spray painted one white, and this one's kind of caked with different spray paints now. But what I'll do is I'll kind of grab it by the bottom here and I'll spin it, and they're on there pretty good. They're adhered with this tacky wall stuff. It's like wall mounting putty that you have to get for like your college dorm, because you can't put holes in the wall or whatever. But it's really great. You just stick like a real small amount. I'll show you real quick. On the bottom there, they stick right to it. And you have to press your hand down pretty firmly until it's really stuck. But once it's on there, it's good to go. And you can spin these pretty effortlessly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it outside. I'm going to spray paint them black first. And then I'm going to go over top of them with a zenithal highlight in English uniform, which is actually pretty close to the color that they are. So they're not going to look terribly different, but they are going to look painted. They're going to look more like this guy. So you can kind of see the colors are pretty close. He has some highlights painted on him, but we're going to get some nice natural occurring shadows by doing black first. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so that's pretty good. All right, so I got my guys. And what I want to do is not spray the camera. I'm not going to go that fast as I spin it, but it'll give me a nice round view of everybody so I can hit them evenly as possible. And this is going to take multiple passes because I have to get every angle. All right, so there they are. They look pretty good. Nice even coverage across the board. It got the bottoms, got the tops. None of that original English uniform color was really shining through, but now I'm going to hit it with an actual English uniform spray paint. See in a second. It creates a nice gradient effect called a zenithal prime. Here's my Vallejo English uniform infantry. That's what they are. Okay, now the trick is to just spray from the top. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Coverage is looking pretty even. That's good. Okay, so now you can see they have a nice zenithal prime to them. You can see the value change from light to dark, and it gives you a lot more pop of that detail. So when we're painting the actual figures, we really don't have to do too much to the uniforms, and instead we can focus on the skin and the various details on the figures, and including their weapons. Easy peasy, spray can squeezy. Now that my figures are primed and ready to go, I painted all of the exposed areas of flesh with a thin coat of beige red. The next thing I did was move on to painting all of the straps and pouches khaki. Next, I painted all of the chin straps of the helmets, the wood parts of the guns, and the canteens with flat brown. On this figure specifically, I ended up doing a bit of experimentation and added more English uniform over top of the highlight that I spray painted, just to try and see how much I could increase the contrast. And I think it looked pretty good. It just adds a lot more time to the overall painting process, and if you're trying to paint a lot of these quickly, it's probably an unnecessary step. Next, I applied charcoal to all of the metal parts of the gun, the boots, and the little buckles. Here's a quick side-by-side that shows you the details added on the right. One thing I wanted to quickly mention before I show you the final results here is that this stuff doesn't happen as quickly as you're watching it on screen. It doesn't take me 15 minutes to paint one of these guys. This is several hours of painting work and over 6 hours of video editing to bring you this little 15-minute tutorial. So I do it because I really like doing it. A lot of people seem to appreciate it, which is cool. I'm learning a lot as I'm going, which is a lot of fun. But it does take a lot of time, and I do lament the whole process because I want to make good videos, right? So please don't be discouraged by watching this and thinking that I make it look really easy. This does take a lot of time. What I kind of showing you right there was just like all the revisions that I go back in. Once I paint something, I go back in and fix up another area. And it's a lot of that back and forth. So with that in mind, please do not judge yourself too harshly. Remember that painting is supposed to be fun, and there are a lot of examples out there and a lot of tutorials, not just mine, that can teach you how to be a better painter. So just seek them out. I can definitely make a video on some of my favorites at some point. I think it would be beneficial to show everyone where I'm learning from as I'm creating content to teach as well. So I think that would be pretty cool and pretty valuable. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to leave you with the final results in just a second. But before I do, if you haven't liked the video, please do that. Please subscribe to the channel if you're into this kind of stuff, and share this with your dad. Peace.